Hello everyone and welcome back to another book review. I am going to be reviewing a book today that is definitely way outside my comfort zone. So every single year for Valentine's Day, I get some romance books out from the library and give them a read. I do not particularly enjoy romance myself, but I think this is a good opportunity to get outside my comfort zone and read books that I wouldn't normally read. This was one of the books that was part of this challenge, and I'm going to be reviewing Nauti and Wild, which is actually a collection of two novellas by the authors Lora, Leigh, and Jaci or Jaci, I'm not sure, Burton. I'm going to be saying Jaci Burton, it may be Jaci Burton. So this is what the cover looks like, and I thought when I saw this on the library shelf, this is way outside my comfort zone for sure, so let's take it home and give it a read. And I'm going to be reviewing both the novellas separately and then discussing my thoughts on the book overall, or the collection overall, at the end of this video. So I will be moving through both novellas. The first one is called Naughty Kisses. That one is by Lora Leigh, and the second one is by Jaci Burton, called Riding the Edge. And a disclaimer, I am not a romance reader, and please know this going in. If you read this collection and you loved it, please do not take anything that I say in this review as a personal attack against you. This is just my personal opinion and what I enjoy reading. If you enjoy these two authors and the content that they write, please keep reading it and put your comment down below. Let me know that you do enjoy these authors and what particularly you enjoy about them. Now let's get into our reviews. So the first novella in this book was the one that was a little shorter in terms of page count, I believe, and that was Naughty Kisses, and that's N-A-U-T-I, like this, Naughty Kisses, by the Lora Leigh. So I'm assuming this actually slots in with another romance series that she is writing, because it seemed to make reference to other characters and that unique spelling, N-A-U-T-I. I had seen other books on the shelf close to this one that had that particular title in it, so I think this is part of a series, but I'm assuming this is like cozy mysteries where you don't need to know the whole story to, or the whole series to understand this story. So the plot of Naughty Kisses is we're following, from the male's perspective, John. John is a lawyer and he's living in Boston, and he comes from a wealthy family, and he's out to eat with his fiance, who he's going to be marrying, but she doesn't seem very nice. In the restaurant, she runs into his best friend, who is out with this girl named Sierra, or this woman named Sierra, that comes in later. And Sierra is a family friend who is actually his dad's goddaughter, and she says, basically they run into each other at the restaurant, and she says, "Hey, did you know that your fiance is cheating on you?" And John is like, "Oh no, she is?" And then the fiance was like, "Well, this relationship isn't for love." And then there's a big breakup, basically, and then he throws her out of his penthouse, and then he's drunk at home and he's depressed. And then Sierra comes over to his house and is like, "I just wanted you to feel better." And they wind up having like a drunken hookup, kind of, except John winds up blacking out, passing out, something, in the middle of them getting busy. And Sierra's really hurt about this whole situation, so she leaves the apartment. Then we have a time skip, and John has decided to leave Boston altogether and move to Kentucky for some reason. That seems to fit in with the rest of the romance books. While in Kentucky, he gets a houseboat. The name of the houseboat is called Naughty Wet Dreams, which is terrible. And he's living in this houseboat in Kentucky. And he's like, "I remember this perfect night of pleasure." I believe that was a direct quote from the book, but I just can't believe it. But he decides he's just gonna live on a houseboat in Kentucky. And one day he gets a call from his dad, who really wants him to kind of come back into the family firm back in Boston, but John's pushing back. And he's like, "Hey John, Sierra's been attacked." And he was like, "Oh my God, no." And then he's like, "The logical solution is to fly Sierra to a little landing strip in the middle of Kentucky, and she can come live in my houseboat, because that's definitely gonna happen." But Sierra's still mad because John hasn't realized that he like slept with Sierra after that drunken night, and Sierra's like madly in love with John. So now they're going to live together on a little houseboat. Well, everyone tracks down who the person who attacked Sierra is, because it's a mystery. Like, someone broke into her apartment and attacked her. And now the only option is for her to go live with John on the houseboat, Naughty Wet Dreams, in Kentucky. So that's where the plot ends, but really I'm using the plot very loosely here, because where was the plot? the plot that I just described was very meager. It was scraps of plot. It was the suggestion of plot, the concept of plot, the like faint whiff or odor of plot, because there was not plot in this book. And I was just looking, this book was a series of excuses to get Sierra and John alone together and getting busy. And I realized partway through this book that, well, this whole book, the whole Naughty and Wild book was marked on the back as romance anthology. The review for Lora Leigh's novels are called Electrically Charged and Erotic. And I'm pretty sure Naughty Kisses was an erotic novel. Now, I already find romance on thin ice. I do not particularly enjoy romance. I find erotica almost unreadable. I do not enjoy it. There's no plot. We all know why we're here. And I have better things to do with my afternoon. So I was not having a good time with Naughty Kisses. I kept waiting for at least the suggestion of plot, and there was a lot of other things I had problems with in this story. I think when you read these books, you're supposed to just let go and live the fantasy, and you're supposed to put yourself, I think, in the mind of Sierra. I think you're supposed to be Sierra. And Sierra, as a person, did not have a lot of personality or character traits. We knew almost nothing about her, and I think that's because you're supposed to insert yourself into Sierra. Insert yourself into your first true love who left you to go live on a houseboat in Kentucky, and then you're going to fantasize that one day he will call you back and you'll have this great reunion. So I think that you're supposed to insert yourself into Sierra, and that's why Sierra is a very, very flat, one-dimensional character, because she's the self-insert person. I don't like the dynamics between the men and the women in this, and this is where I feel like I just can't let go of real life when reading a book like this, and I think maybe if I was able to do that a little bit more, I would enjoy it a little bit more. But there's a massive dynamic between like this rich lawyer and this much younger girl. It's legal, it's above board, but I will talk about that in a little bit. I believe she's 23 or 24 and he's in his 30s and he has a lot of money, and I feel like in this situation he has a lot of power and a lot of his language is very possessive, and I really dislike, I don't want to be spoken to in a possessive manner. That is not attractive to me. So I find it I do find it a little worrying. Just the dynamics seemed a little questionable and interesting to me, but I think nothing too weird happened, but the whole thing, the dynamics felt a little off. Second, there was repeat mention of the fact that John had found her attractive and was like watching her since she turned 18. And there was a real strong emphasis on like since the moment that she turned 18. And I don't understand why the author couldn't just be like, he started to notice her when she was 22. Like, would that have substantially changed the story for her to have really started being a love interest to the main character, John, at a later date? I just felt like since she turned 18 really makes me think that he was watching her when she was 17 or 16 and just couldn't say anything because, you know, that's illegal in the United States. So I didn't like that. I mean, maybe you're supposed to put yourself in the fantasy of like being young and desirable, but I felt like that could have been rewritten to just be a little less creepy. And again, this is me just not letting go of real life per se when trying to read more of a fantasy book. Also, one of my other big problems was with the plot, but I feel like this is a book where you're not supposed to critique the plot. The plot was very poorly written, in my opinion, particularly in regard to the mysterious attacker who attacked Sierra in her apartment. I knew who it was. There's like 4 characters in this whole book, and we knew where 3 of them were, so the 4th one, who was a man, was clearly the person who was the attacker. It was very, very obvious to me, so even the whole mystery of the attacker just felt fake and made up for Sierra to go live on this houseboat. I will now move on to the second novella, Riding the Edge, which is by Jaci or Jaci Burton right up here. I'm going to give props right away. This book, or this novella, actually had plot. So Riding the Edge actually had plot. It was still not my cup of tea, but while I think Naughty Kisses veered more towards erotica, Riding on the Edge was definitely more romance. It was a spicy, steamy romance, for sure. You're going to get a lot of that sort of content if you enjoy that sort of content, but it was not just pure erotica with no plot. There was a level of plot, if, in my opinion, still poorly written. So this story revolves around Rick, who is a federal agent who's who gets assigned to do things from this general. And the other main character is Ava, who is a master's degree or soon to be doctoral student who is going to be the love agent, or the love object it's between Rick and Ava is what I'm trying to say. Two other characters are Lacey, who is Ava's best friend, and Bo, who is a biker. So Rick has been tasked with getting close to Ava, who is the daughter of a politician, even though she's also this doctoral student. I mean, you can be both. And she has joined a biker gang. And we find out that Ava has joined the biker gang, which I'm pretty sure is supposed to be a knockoff Hell's Angels. Because her best friend from kindergarten, Lacey, has joined the biker gang. And Ava thinks it's very odd because Lacey had started dating Bo, and then all of a sudden she just ditched all of her schoolwork. She just joined this gang, and there's suspicions that there's a lot of illegal activity going on, particularly smuggling of, let's call it, controlled substances around the United States from this biker gang. So Ava's only in there to get close to Lacey. Rick has been assigned because Ava's father wants to find out what's going on with Ava and why she's joined this biker gang, because it kind of looks bad for him as a politician. And so that's why they're both in this biker gang. Now, Rick has to be undercover, so when Ava meets Rick, Ava just thinks that Rick is in the gang, in the biking club for his own enjoyment. And Rick does have a connection with Bo. Bo is his cousin from his childhood. Over the course of them being in this biker gang, Rick has to keep an eye on Ava without letting Ava know that that's why he's there. He also discovers that there is some illicit activity, some contraband smuggling being done in the group, so he has to put a stop to that. Ava is falling for Rick, but also trying to understand Lacey's point of view, why she joined this gang, why she gave up her entire life to be with her boyfriend. And of course, we have all the romance in the plot because Ava wants something serious but doesn't think that that is something Rick can give, and Rick isn't sure that he can be serious with her. So another one of my big problems with both of these books is, but this one does it a little better, is the lack of female friends. So in the first book, Sierra had, who were her friends? Why didn't she have friends she could stay with? Who were her female friends that weren't also love interests that she was sleeping with? So here we do have a friend. So Ava does have one friend, Lacey, that she's concerned about, which is why she's joined this biker group. But Ava doesn't seem to have any other female friends, and I think that's kind of a little strange and odd. I think most people have a group of people they can hang out with. So I just find the lack of female friends interesting, and I think that's different from real life. We'll just say that. So the plot actually wasn't too bad if it had been well written, but I think the plot was just kind of there to facilitate the romance, and for that reason, I think it could have been written a lot better. There were a lot of times where things were not happening realistically, and it was clearly just a scene to put Rick and Ava together in a situation. I also think at the very end, Lacey decides that maybe giving up her entire studies to date Bo was like a bad idea. But Rick also tries to spend a lot of time convincing Ava that her concerns about Lacey just totally upending her personality to date a boyfriend is wrong, and that she said, he's like, people change. Yeah, people change, but if you're in your mid to late 20s, you've completed your master's degree, and then you give up everything to run drugs across the border of Mexico, it's like, I would have reason to be concerned, or at least question if those sort of life changes are good necessarily. And I feel like Rick was just trying to convince her that it didn't really matter. I don't know. The plot was bad in my opinion, but there was plot. So we're improving from Naughty Kisses. There was plot in Writing on the Edge, and I think the plot could have been interesting if it was focused upon. I think the focus and the author's attention was primarily on the romance side, and because I'm not a romance reader, I didn't like it. So overall, I think this book was definitely a miss. I think this half star out of 5. I mean, I really didn't like this book. I really didn't. There was no plot. I think, again, because I didn't realize the first story was going to be erotica, so even though I try to read, oh, my cat. Even though I try to read romance during Valentine's Day, I do not try to read erotica because I know it's not my cup of tea and I don't like it. So I think knowing that first story was erotica would have changed whether or not I had gotten this book out for this reading challenge. I thought the plots were weak. I didn't care about any of the love. I never wound up caring about any of these characters and their love relationships, triangles, whatever. So I think that also gave it kind of a negative view in my head. The plots are basic, a lack of female friendship, questionable dynamics. Overall, this was not my cup of tea. But if anything I said in this review is your cup of tea, then maybe you want to check out this Naughty and Wild book by these two authors. Leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below, and I hope you have a great rest